13 and 14 are a little similar in the sense that they both have some good scenes, but they're compromised by a lot of boring scenes. I mean, this whole middle section of the show, I think, really is when the narrative, as I've said before, just stalls in its tracks too much. And I keep asking myself, what is this show about? Like, and it's really saying something that the best scenes in the two respective episodes are the really startling scenes of violence. Like, I think the best scene in part 13 is Mr. C's arm wrestling contest with that bald guy, and then he shoots him in the face after he wins the contest. And there is a legitimate suspense when he's like saying, "You hurt my arm when you lowered it down here, and you hurt it even more when you did it down here." And then, like, as he starts doing the same thing to him, there's a lot of great suspense there, and you don't expect it when he shoots him in the face, and then he shoots that Ray guy dead. And I think the best scene in part 14 is when Sarah Palmer goes to the bar and that trucker. I had forgotten this scene. I had sort of remembered that shocking moment when Sarah takes her face off and you see the creepy teeth inside her head. Like, that was like, oh wait, I sort of remember this, and it still freaked me out seeing it again. And I definitely forgot when she impales him in the neck by headbutting him. But again, like, these are violent scenes, but I just, as I said, saying something that the only way the show can get my attention at this point is when Lynch just does his violence stick. It kind of reminds me of Roger Ebert's review of Wild at Heart, where he felt like the violence just was calling attention to itself, and he felt like Lynch had no reason to do all that violence. I'm not offended by violence in David Lynch's work, but I appreciate it if there's a story behind it. Like, if I'm emotionally involved, that way I can enjoy it a little more. Like, I'm vaguely remembering what are the stuff that I liked the most about 13 and 14 outside of those scenes. I guess in part 13, I like how Tom Sizemore is on his knees like, "Oh, please give me one more chance. I'm sorry, Dougie." And he failed to kill Dougie with the poisoned coffee, and the waitress is saying, "Would you like some pie, hon?" And so I like that stuff in 13. And I also like when James comes in at the end and sings "Just You and I," which is total fan service. But hey, I'll take any fan service at this point just to make it feel like Twin Peaks. 14 is a very odd episode because there's that whole extended scene where Bobby and Hawk and Andy and Robert Forster as Frank Truman go into the woods, and they're just in the woods for a long time, and then Andy somehow gets zapped up and sees the giant and somehow has a vision of that the naked Asian lady who has no eyes is important. And I'm sort of like, it's just kind of odd. I don't really know what any of this means. And then at one point we see James, and I'm like, oh yeah, James is a security guard. So that's kind of weird how Bobby grew up to be a cop, James grew up to be a security guard, and then James is that scene with the British guy with the green glove. It goes on way too long, and I've heard a lot of people make fun of the British guy's green glove as just being one of the stupider parts of the Return. I am kind of thinking, is this Lynch's idea of like a Marvel or a DC superhero, just British chap with a superpower like green glove? I don't know. It just doesn't do anything for me, and also, like, when, like, is it in 13 when Dr. Jacoby and Nadine are chatting up, and I'm just like, well, I appreciate seeing them in the show, but it feels like their roles don't serve a purpose anymore. And I will say that in 13, it moved me to see, like, Big Ed and Norma just trying to reconnect, but Norma has a problem with this guy that she's with who's trying to chat up better ways for her to do business, like naming her diner, her Double R, after herself, like her other franchises are. And there is that moving shot of Big Ed just alone at the gas station. I liked that part. And 14 does not end well, in my opinion, because there's just another kind of boring Roadhouse performance, although this one is by Lissy. And then I thought to myself, wait a minute, Lissy, where have I heard of her? Where have I heard of this singer before? And then I remembered that she did a song called Shameless. Look this up on YouTube, Shameless by Lissy, and all the comments on there are from people who discovered that other song that she did like in a Pornhub video. So I'm like, oh yeah, this is where I've heard of Lissy before. Now, the song she sings on Twin Peaks is not the same song, but I'm just like, wow, it's there you go. Like that's how I made the connection and stuff. But at this point in the show, I just get impatient. In 13, like I think there's another scene of Audrey yelling at her husband Charlie about whatever, about how she needs to go to the Roadhouse. I'm like, what does all this mean? Why should I care? Like, and why does Audrey have to be like this? This isn't the Audrey I remember. So at this point in the show, you can feel my patience wearing even past the point of thin at this point. I'm just like, can we get to episode 16 already? I can't wait anymore.